100. So I figured I'd do a question and answer, typed up a script here. I wrote down all the questions from my videos, questions on Reddit, questions I've gotten on stream. There's even some things that aren't questions and also weren't directed at me, but I just had thoughts about them. So we'll go ahead and start here. We could do Q&A, leave whatever questions and comments you want to. So if you have any requests for videos, topics, questions, my opinion on lore things if you have them, memes, because I upload memes sometimes, gameplay. So a question I've gotten a lot since I started playing Mistweaver is why don't I play Night Elf? Everyone on my Mythic Plus team could probably tell you my answer to this because I've said it quite a bit. You can't Shadow Meld to bleed. You cannot Shadow Meld to bleed. That's why I made a dwarf in Dragonflight, and all but a few of my monks are dwarf or Dark Iron dwarf. Mistweaver also can't dispel curses, which has panned out pretty well. I think Blood Elf might be interesting since we don't have a purge and I play Draenei on my Brewmaster because I think their racial is really strong for Brew when dealing with incoming stagger or for helping your healer out somehow. It scales with your max HP, so I think that tanks get a lot of usage out of it. Do you think Thas'alah is the cause of the lightbloom? That would be interesting, but Arthas chopped down the tree and poured plague on the ground. I think Blizzard designed the runes of Deathhelm specifically in a way where it's hollowed out just to stop players from speculating about its roots potentially being alive. However, the phenomena that makes great trees like Nordrassil, Arcandor, Thas'alah is the same thing repeated in the lightbloom. These trees drink in vast amounts of arcane energies from arcane wells of power and swell to become strong. The lightbloom is just that, but for the light. So all that light we're pumping into the well, the lightbloom's absorbing and causing it to spread and fester. We sort of seem to resolve this at the end of the campaign after we turn the night well into the dawn well. I think that's what it's called, yeah. Because we throw Arcandor fruit into it. For some reason, we allow Umbric to throw a void crystal into it, even though that seems like it would be a bad idea. And the night elves, they throw moonwell water into it, which are well of eternity waters blessed by Elune. What makes you think the Tree of Xavius exists? Basically because Malfurion thinks it does in the book Storm Rage, which is the first time that they confront the nightmare instead of it just being some random madness that grips like a dragon or whatever. So Malfurion thinks that Xavius is still alive. In the book Storm Rage, Malfurion senses that the Tree of Xavius is somewhere beneath the waves between the Broken Isles and Ashera. He kills the tree in the dream version of the Rift of Oln in the same circumstances and by the same weapons or by the same methods that we do in Legion. They chop down the dream version using a legendary artifact weapon called the Axe of Cenarius, also known as Brox's Axe. So, like, I believe it's the dream version of the axe that Broxigar stabbed Sargeras with, but I'm not too sure. I'm pretty sure it is the Axe of Cenarius. And then after they do that, he comes back in Legion anyways. So they killed him in the dream in the Rift of Oln with a legendary artifact weapon, and then he just came back. Another thing to note is what Xavius tells Malfurion, and this is like, for me, this and the Fandral parts of the book are just so, they're so crazy. It's one of the reasons it's one of my favorite WoW books, even one of my favorite books of all time. Quote, "You will never be rid of me. I am you. I am your nightmare, Malfurion," end quote. So I'm not sure what Xavius means by that, but maybe he's like, some corrupted version of the dreaming state of Malfurion, or maybe he's just being metaphorical. I don't know, but it's just like disturbing. So I like that quote. But I mean, even Xavius told him that. Even if we did kill Xavius, he has an eternal demon soul and will just return to the Nether. His tree roots have burrowed so far as to be able to reach up from the ocean. And Malfurion notes that it is too similar to the methods he uses earlier in the book when he is turned into a tree. This would require some explanation. But basically, how Xavius grew the nightmare originally was that he turned Malfurion into a tree when he was trapped in his like coma, and then as the tree of Malfurion grew, I guess so too did Xavius, or so did the nightmare. It's kind of weird. Everything in the book and everything regarding Night Elf mysticism is always shrouded in a veil of mystery that I think always makes it very fun to think about. It's always so esoteric or arcane in the literal definition of the word arcane, which is more closely related to archaic, which is it's just hard to understand or think about. Like the concept that the world's soul is dreaming, and maybe that dream makes up all reality, or the Emerald Dream is kind of like a almost Cthulhu-esque sort of thing, or would you call it Eldritch or Lovecraftian? Because the creator god in Lovecraft's universe is called Azathoth, and he created all the lesser gods like Cthulhu, and then he went to sleep, and then all the lesser gods play a song that keeps him asleep. And you can see narrative parallels between that and the stuff going on at Zereth Mortis and the Song of Creation, played by the first ones, and all that. I've wrote entire long blog posts about the thematic parallels between Tolkien's work and H.P. Lovecraft's work and Shadowlands lore. I should probably do a video about it. My scripts folder is full of videos that I never make all the way to completion. Like, I have probably 20 different dress theories, and I've only ever uploaded 2 of them as far as I can remember. There's also what Xal'atath tells us in Legion, which is that Xavius prefers to control from afar and uses projections to fight for him. Even a shade of Xavius is strong enough to defeat Malfurion and Cenarius, so to me that means that Xavius is getting more powerful every time that he comes back, because the first time he was just like a figment, and then the second time he had like grown to use Malfurion's own druidism against him, and then like he was a tree that had almost grown around the world, or his roots had almost grown around the world. Then the next time he appears in Legion, he just very easily defeats Malfurion and Cenarius, like I think almost simultaneously, or maybe he does Cenarius and then he like is beating Malfurion. So he's just getting stronger every time. If you want to read the rest of my thoughts and theories there, you can. I can see my friend Coolzo in the corner of my screen messaging me. He was feeling sick earlier this week, so hopefully he'll be down to play the game next week. If I had to rate this theory based on confidence level, I would say 100% Xavius is not dead. Even if the writers say he's dead, they will probably ass pull him later at some point with some explanation for why he isn't dead or isn't the original Xavius. Sort of like how they pulled Gul'dan out of WoD, or how Titans weren't really dead, they're just defeated. See, like, they said Titans were dead, and they're like dead, and that's, it's all over, it's GG, it's Trevor. But then they were like, no, they weren't actually dead. They were just like defeated, and their souls were captured. And. So they probably do something like that with Davis. It only makes sense too, because it is consistent with lore, all the lore they've wrote about it, especially in like in the RPG books, which they like to go back to and draw inspiration from, because it's got a ton of the RPG books are not considered canon, but what you find all the time is that they base tons of new lore off the RPG books, and I think they will run out eventually, but they've still got a ways to go. They will probably continue to do that. With Metzen back, they may not need to do that as much, but those books are just really good insight into like how Metzen thinks about the world and where he thinks things could go or how they might work, or a little bit of lore consistency, and then a little bit of like speculation, I guess. So the RPG books are good. He actually worked on another one too. So they released a Dragonomicon monster manual for D&D 5.0 that has the dragon flights. We get some really cool insights, and I believe Metzen worked on that too. We get some really cool insights into the Twilight Dragonflight and the Plague Dragonflight. I think that because all of them have links to Northrend the last time we saw them, I've got a video about this. Or maybe I actually did not make a video about this. I hope that I did. But because they're all tied to Northrend in some way, maybe we'll see that Eridicron has made a corrupt flight out of all these corrupted flights, like the Infinite, the Plague Dragonflight, the Twilight Dragonflight, all that stuff. I'd love to see it. I think it'd be great. How are you liking Helena so far? So this is in regards to Fellowship, which is a game that's like a copy of WoW Mythic Plus. It's just like standalone Mythic Plus. Helena is fun. I like that her and Miko are so different, so it feels like you're playing a different game entirely. I haven't tried saving yet, but I probably will get into Fellowship once WoW season dies down. I'm hesitant at the moment due to a lack of dungeon content. This is something I've said online a lot, is for me personally, they need to release more dungeons, because I'll play your game all day, every day, if I have the opportunity, the time, and if I think the game is fun. And I did that for Fellowship in the preseason. I did it during beta. Um, if there's not new content though, it's just the same thing I've already done so much. And as much as I do love Mythic Plus, it's like one of the main reasons I play WoW. And one of the main reasons I love Fellowship so much is just the content format and the system, the progression systems, all that. I really do enjoy it, but also I every day, all day, if I could, if I was able to, pushing keys and stuff. I got top 0.1%, just barely as Miko. It was really tough season, really competitive. It was a lot of fun though. I would like to go back and play Fellowship. I'd like to play Helena, like to play Miko again. But if they don't add new maps, then I don't know, it's hard for me to do that. Eventually, my friend Coolzo, who's just messaging me, he's actually playing it right now. And I want to see what he said, but I also want to finish this video. Okay, so next, not really question, but but comment, um, is in regards to my single uploaded video about Heroes of the Storm, where I'm playing as the Mistweaver in that game named Lily, who I love Lily as a character. She's so great, and they brought her and Chin, I think, back for the Pandaren storyline. I really hope that they add the adult Lily model to Heroes of the Storm. I think it would be really cool. They could go as far as to give Lily and Chin the Pandaren heritage armor is just like an easy skin idea. So adult Lily with the heritage Pandaren armor, I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, enemy core 51%, 4 dead. Let's do this worthless camp. Yeah, this was the first time I did a PvP match in that game. It's funny for sure. I remember what I was thinking when I did it though, which was that I wanted to deny the enemy from being able to take the neutral objective if we lost a team fight. So like the game gets really swingy. It's almost like when you play a 45-minute game of League where it's just like the next team fight's going to decide the game. Right. That's how it feels, and that's how Heroes of the Storm feels all the time, especially when you're that close to the end. Like, let's say that somehow the enemy team wipes us, they're gonna go take that neutral camp and then probably win the game. That at least that's I mean, now that I think about it now, it would take them maybe it would give us enough time to get back and try and stop them before they got to our core, but that's what I was afraid of, was I thought, well, we're ahead, so let's take these camps so that they can't have them if they manage to come back. Then what? Then they're just fighting our waves, trying to push back to our core, and it's I just felt like maybe it would buy us more time. But then again, maybe if they had to do the camps, the time it takes to do the camps would give us time. I'm not sure. That's just what I was thinking though when I did that. I wonder where Freya went. I can't remember where it's from. I think it's from Reddit. Yeah, that's weird that she has been absent from the lore since Wrath. I don't know what Blizzard is saving her for, but based on her being an enemy in both Time Rifts and Dragonflight and the Here and Here origin story, I'm guessing that she will be our enemy in the future. There's also like a really interesting character. If you look at the Major Seal raid, there's a boss called Neum, and it says that Neum was placed there by Eonor and Freya to enforce the ordering of the dream, and we killed that, so maybe the dream is like untamed now, and maybe that's a problem, because who knows, maybe Neum was keeping the nightmare in check somehow, or I don't know, or not even the nightmare, maybe Neum was just preventing outside forces like the burning legion from penetrating the dream. We don't really know what Neum was doing besides that it was enforcing order and weaving designs for the dream. What talents are you running for conduit? So I already answered this in the question, and the talents will be outdated because it's, I think, from season 2. But I wanted to use this question to answer why I play conduit. I personally don't like Master Harmony gameplay. I think it both looks and feels really unfun to play. If I had a greater control over how Harmony is spent and if applying it to enemies was easier, I think I might like it slightly more, but it's not just the Harmony or Conduit, the spells or abilities themselves. It's also their hero talent trees. Conduit is a Swiss army knife of utility and always has been. It makes you tankier, it makes you faster, it makes you stronger, smarter. It gives you constant shields for padding HVS. Um, Gives you cooldown reduction and encourages you to stay in melee a lot more than people think about, in my opinion. I've tended to think people have the hero talent backwards, like their perception of them backwards. I think that Harmony should be caster oriented rather than Conduit. Conduit accelerates fist weaving with CDR, movement speed, and damage reduction. More teas, more kicks, more cocoons. If that isn't an invitation to be aggressive, then I don't know what it is. In contrast with Harmony, you're building this bar to pop Harmony to amp your healing on affected targets. This is too passive for me personally. I'd prefer to even see Harmony outright replaced with Shadowpan. I think that Shadowpan would have been way more exciting and fun to play as a Fistweaver. You're just machine gun punching enemies and all their friends just sound more I'm sorry. Machine gun punching the enemies and all their friends just sounds more fun and exciting and befitting of the most aggressive healer playstyle. Lastly, I think thematically that the nomenclature is boring. You have two hero talents named after factions in Pandaria like Shadowpan and Celestials. Then you have Master of Harmony. I think it would have been way better for them to name it Path of the Golden Lotus or simply Golden Lotus. And if you don't know, the Golden Lotus are the divine or chosen protectors of the Veil of Eternal Blossoms. They're like super secretive. The Shadowpan is a thing, like, and they've got their secret arts, but the Golden Lotus is supposed to be like even deeper. Like you've been elevated. You're on a different plane. And interestingly, Sunwalker Desco, who shows up in Midnight, and I was excited to see him. I was wondering where he was. He was actually chosen by the Golden Lotus, I believe. I hope it was the Golden Lotus. Hope I'm not getting this wrong. But and I believe that his parents gave him up to them or something at some point, or maybe that they told his parents he had some great destiny. I can't remember the short story of this, like this long into the future, but the Golden Lotus have some sort of special quality or aptitude to them that is not really explored that well. They seem to understand the waters of the Veil better than most people. I appreciate this and would watch more guides. I think this is in regards to my fellowship routes. I wish I had more time to theorycraft as much as I used to. When it comes to guides, though, I've tended to opt against making any. I think that the space for guides is often overpopulated by people saying the same thing over and over. My builds and routes tend to be derived purely from my own vibes or what I think is fun. It's not always optimal. People used to lose their minds whispering me to tell me that Dance of Chi-Chi is bad, and I would tell them simply, I know you're trying to be helpful, but this is how I like to play the game. It's probable that when something is so undeniably strong, it can feel like there's no option to pick it, so sometimes my stuff eventually meets at the same point as everyone else's. I really dislike when the developers of games don't balance their alternative build path options. I would like everything to be viable. Not just viable, as like, see, some people would say it can be viable, but it's not optimal. I'm like, well, why not? Why not? The fun in playing RPGs oftentimes is customization and expression, whether that's mechanically, thematically, or skillfully. Thorns and Roots, I fear this is much bigger for we are heading to the Dream Rift. Dream Rift turned out to be a bit of a letdown. It didn't even get a cinematic. But here are some thorny roots made by the Quilboar who used decay druidism. And here are some thorny vines winding around Teldoran. Here's the gnarled bramble theme of the Drust. The decay and corruption of nature seems to carry these themes along in contrast with the bright blooms and abundant blossoms of their opposites. And Ilgynoth's tentacles seem a lot like roots and thorns, don't they? It is something consistent when we see evil nature and something to look out for, as it will always serve as foreshadowing or clues for what to expect. So basically, if there's thorns and there's vines and stuff like that, there's probably some evil druidism going on or some nefarious stuff, and we might be able to infer what kind too, because what's wrapping around Tal'Doran looks like what the Quilboar spawn almost, but at the same time, it's also got kind of nightmare colors, if I remember correctly. It's almost got like a red hinge to it. So interesting angle there. And then the entire area where Tal'Doran is looks a lot like a dressed inhabited area where it's got the fall and autumn color schemes. Or maybe it was red. I'd have to log into the game. I can picture both in my mind. I'm a very imaginative person. Always have been since I was young. I can just imagine entire things inside my head. Like I can imagine an entire movie in my head almost. Playing Fellowship until Turboboost. Yeah, I don't think I care to play Turboboost anymore. It's exhausting. It's also demoralizing to watch your progress get wiped out by free isles and free keys. They also spite Mythic Plus mains by not giving us access to the same loot with dinars unless we quit our guilds and raid like it's a second job. Like I don't want to leave my casual guild or my role player guild to join a Mythic guild so I can farm a boss every week to try and get a trinket to use in Mythic Plus, and throwing Turbo Boost at that doesn't make me want to do that any more than before Turbo Boost existed. I think it's aggravating. I have some very strong opinions about the state of Mythic Plus, and getting into it would take up this entire video. I actually have a video about this, and I hope that Fellowship does introduce more dungeons because I would probably just play WoW until Turboboost hits, and then I would just quit Mythic Plus entirely. I'd just quit playing. Yeah, this could be an entire video. I get very passionate when I talk about Mythic Plus, and I would probably sound angry if the longer I talked about it. So I'm gonna move on. We know that the world tree of the Emerald Nightmare is a Lunahir, the first world tree that Eonor planted and Aman'Thul destroyed. Where are you sourcing this from? The book. Well, let me first say that this is a good question. The Book of Lunahir says that Eonor got a branch of Gahanir, the mother tree, from a loon. She planted it and grew it into the first world tree, then Aman'Thul destroyed it. The lore community consensus is that the world tree in the nightmare is a Lunahir. We think that specifically because of what Malfurion says about it. Another reason is Teldrassil, Vordrassil, and Olunahir could have fit the criteria. Both Vordrassil and Olunahir were destroyed, but still have a presence in the dream, as if they weren't felled in real life. But we know Fandral planted two of them, and what happened to them. The Ungaro tree had no explanation other than what Malfurion told us about it until the Book of Olunahir came along and explained it, essentially. There was some confusion here due to the lack of details from Blizzard. See, there was really old lore that Mount Hyjal had vast caverns beneath it, and night elves sometimes occupied these spaces as burrows or dens. The Heronir lore basically says they went under Hyjal following a light until they were led to Herondar. And if you look at this map, here is Hyjal, and here is Ungaro. According to the Heronir, before they went underground, Freya was running around Hyjal being oppressive. This doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me personally because we lack context of what Freya was doing there before the Well of Eternity and before Nordrassil were planted. Then they say they ran into kobolds, then Nerubians, and old god stuff. Old god stuff could be anywhere, but Nerubians are really strange, honestly. So they either ran into the Nerubians from Northrend, or somehow they went from Hyjal to Khazalgar to Ungaro. This pathing is really weird, and I assume it would have taken several lifetimes for their people to make this complete journey. They don't mention running into Akir, though, which is the weirdest part because Akir are known for hibernating underground and building their nests underground and tunneling. So maybe they didn't so maybe they didn't cross Thousand Needles, Silithus, or the Southern Barrens, or maybe they just didn't record their incursions and memories. I don't know, it's honestly quite weird. If we go back in the lore to when Azera was still queen of the elves before the Sundering, Azera wouldn't expand her empire to Hyjal because she feared a loon would like smite her if she encroached there. Like the night elves thought the night elves and the highborn, all of them, the elves, they all saw Hyjal as like this Holy Land of Elune. And so Ajera in one of the books, won't she won't send her people to Hyjal, where the night elves, the druid or the nature loving night elves are, because she's afraid that Elune will like smite her or something. So there's definitely something very special about Hyjal. It's got its caverns. It's the night elves have been living there since ancient times. Um, and the Heronir story the the Heronir story even suggests that the dark trolls, dark spear trolls, or not dark spear trolls, the dark trolls were living in or around Hyjal or the caves. Now that it actually just dawned on me as I'm answering this, and I'm probably going to skip to the next question because that paragraph's long, and I think I may have explained most of it. I will say something else. But it also just dawned on me that during the timers, we got these tablets that told us so that universe where Freya was the one in charge instead of Odin, that timeline, the Titans were successful, but Freya attacks us. She's like hostile to us, the players. But there's a lore item that tells us about the Tauren possibly explaining how they would have survived the Black Empire and the Ordering, which is that they lived inside of caves, and the Watchers find them and they run away to caves and stuff. Um, so yeah, I'm guessing that the Dark Trolls, maybe that's why they were around Hyjal so much, as they were living in the caves to hide from the Black Empire and from the Titans, but I don't know. We don't have context. Another thing say in this paragraph though is that it may be a Titan installation. Maybe a loon is imprisoned in the mountain. Maybe the third Beladar crystal described by Arcadius is there. But there's no evidence to support any of these suggestions, and there's no record by the Night Elves or Heronir that there's anything beneath Hyjal besides caves. Like the Night Elves just say that they make burrows and dens there for their like packs of druids, and the Heronir in their historical recounting, they're following some sort of orb of light that I assume might be Anchi, maybe. Maybe it could be anything, but we know it's not the Titan like spheres because Titan spheres appear in their flashback and they're all hostile and they all look different from the orb that they're following. Um so yeah, maybe there's a Titan installation under Hyjal. Uh it's hard to say. Like we just don't know. But I think that there's definitely hints that something is going on under Hyjal. Something inside the mountain. Something unusual going on. I get a little sidetracked answering that. Yeah, I have ADHD pretty bad. I will get sidetracked. That's even why I wrote a script here, and I'm kind of going off script a little bit, or I'm summarizing my scripts at times. Why do you not chiji every single intermission? This is about a it's about a video very early into season 3, The War Within, where like I think that nobody had mythic gear yet, maybe, or maybe they had one piece tops, and so like with crest cap and stuff, a 14 Halls of Atonement. I don't know if they ever did any nerfs, but I'm gonna go ahead and say pre-nerf because of how early in the season it was. It was just very one-shotty because our characters felt kind of low on the eye level side. But where does it say here? Because I played J Bond out of preference, and at a certain key level, the tiny shield provided by Chi-Chi won't be enough to save them from dying anyways. Like if my allies have 16 million HP and Chi-Chi gives them a 300k absorb shield, then the probability that they still get one shot is very high. Maybe not at this key level, but eventually. There's more I could have done here, I'm sure, but this key came down to general mechanical ignorance. It was probably the first couple weeks of the season, and I remember the difficulty jump from 13 to 14 was massive. You didn't have to respect mechanics. You didn't just have to respect mechanics, you had to fear them at a low eye level, like we were when pushing this. And I think this was, I mean, it was probably one of the earliest 14s too, for casuals like myself. Like I think that was the first 14 I attempted that season. I can't remember for sure, but I think it was. Or maybe it was Ecodome Eldani, because I think Ecodome Eldani was the first one on time, and I think we did it the first week of the season, which was a huge task. Like that group was insane. They played so well. Um, the tank died because nobody kicked cinderblast. Yeah, I know. I wish I had. This pool was wild, and I always felt like I was behind a GCD in terms of what I needed to do. Miss kicks make keys bricks. Just remember that. That thinks we don't want to play other Rudy Zone again. Holy, they're gonna be this commenter. Okay, I might have to go. I'm gonna go find this comment. You're gonna be really unhappy when you log into midnight. This better be used to bring Druid to more races. I believe Blizzard has talked about making Paladin and Druid universal, or they've been asked about it and said it's something they're always considering, at least a few times over the years. I think for Druids, it's probably a delicate matter of making the Druid forms. They put a lot of effort into making sure the themes make sense and that they want the Druid forms to feel appropriate when it's delivered. When they were asked about demon hunters for other races, they hinted that it would come later in Midnight. This could mean just Nightborn will be getting demon hunter forms. And lore it said that elves are particularly preferred for their long lives and affinity for magic. But I think that means Forsaken, Heronir, Arathi, or anything with unusually long lives should be able to edge out a way to become one. If multi-class ever becomes a thing, could you imagine Demon Hunter Death Knights? Lore for that would be so metal. Druids, though, at least in lore, Druids, though, at least in old lore, had to cultivate their skills over a very, very long period of time. Illidan's history, for instance, made it sound like you had to do a significant amount of your life just to be good enough to join a pack or be useful to wild gods beyond what anyone can beyond what just any basic person can provide. This probably isn't canon anymore, though, since it's obscure, and certain races like Worgen and Kultiran seem to have taken shortcuts to their druidism by embracing strange magics. I'm not sure if I'm going to edit this video to like edit out my stammering or stuttering yet. I probably will a little bit, where I repeated the line too many times, but you can see why I kind of rush through a little bit because I've reread something so many times. I've got a lisp, and sometimes it's just hard to read for a long period of time. Like this video is already over 30 minutes long. Talks too fast. Oh, I was just talking about that. Look where we're at. I try to be aware of this. The reason this happens sometimes is that I've read a script so many times that by the fifth time, I'm just trying to get through it. It's really rough narrating. I wish all I had to do was write sometimes. Like I've thought about could I could I get somebody to read this script for me? And I think that I've asked some of the people on my M Plus team too. Like I was sick, or no, I wasn't sick. I went to a rock concert and like my voice was wore out and I had a video I wanted to put out, but I ended up finishing the video anyways, so it was all right. But I've asked my team before if any of them would be interested in narrating videos, and I think it would be thematically appropriate. Like if I ever do Forsaken lore, I'll probably get Coolsey to do it. I honestly think that he'd be a great voice actor for it. He can do such a good range of like lower um voices, I feel like, and I don't know. To me, it just seems like he would be really good at it. Um, I forgot what it was saying. I mean, I got that ADHD in me. Uh, yeah, I wish all I had to do was write sometimes. Like if I could just write all my theories. In fact, that's why I think you should. I'm not saying you have to read everything on my Reddit, but if you wanted to read some of my lore musings and theories, because I post theories all the time on Reddit and the Warcraft thing. Like some of my videos are even just like a theory that I've typed out and thought about so much on Reddit or on the Blizzard official story forums, the official Blizzard story forums. Like I've just thought about it and thought about it and thought about it and typed it out and typed it out and typed it out, and I'm like, okay, I think that I have reached the point with it where I think it's worthy of a video. So if you want to, you can go follow me there. The links to all my other content, my Patreon, my Reddit, I made a Twitter, but I'll be honest with you, I don't really use it that much. Mostly use it to tweet at like Chris Metzen and the Warcraft team, the devs and stuff, or to comment on occasionally on like monk memes or Mistweaver memes. Um, very rarely. I maybe check Twitter like once a month, sometimes less, but you can follow it if you want to. And then I've got a Reddit where I mostly post on game subreddits where or games that I'm very active in. I post on their subreddits, the Warcraft lore forum. I post there a lot. And yeah, I think that's everything. You can also, if you're only here for my competitive content, you can track my Raider IO profile. I do have to say though that I'm not sure if I'll be very competitive this season. I think that me and my Mythic Plus team were very burnt out after doing MDI time trials last season, and it was rough because I think that 2 or 3 days of the week our dragon lost internet, so we had to do one of the keys up to 16 with 4 people, and then the next 2 days after that, I think that our paladin maybe, or I can't remember who, but somebody had something to do over the weekend. It could have been a wedding, a funeral, I don't remember. It could have even just been traveling. So it was just like we signed up for MDI time trials. We got our characters all set up, and then we only got to play like a few hours a couple days that week. We managed to get the 16s done, but I think that and the fatigue of doing the Worth and dungeons and just all that, it just built on us, and it's still where it wore me down. But if you want to track my Raider IO progress, you can go look at it there. It's the top link on my profile. I would like to push, but it's exhausting, especially when you work a job. And I've got a lot of hobbies. Like every once in a while, I get into like Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh or something. Like I've been playing League a lot lately, but when I get bored of that, I'll probably start playing Rust. I just it's just what I do is I just rotate my games a little bit so that they are always have something new and interesting to them, you know. But yeah, you can follow my Raider IO. I guess I'm talking about a lot because I wish I could put in the time to it to do it again, to get far with it again. I'm just not sure if it'll happen again this season. Maybe next season. I absolutely loved Inzoth, one of my favorite characters in WoW, controlling reality through dreams and minds. I love him too. My favorite old god, though, is a tie between Yasharaj and Goon. They're all pretty good except for Cthulhu. Cthulhu barely has any lines and barely any story. I have entire theories about how all the old gods might still be alive. I should really upload a video about it sometime. Also, I wrote this script before this was data mined, but the point 0.5 patch is on PTR and a new Void empowered N'Zoth model was data mined. And a lot of content creators are asking, how did Xalatath get the dagger? And you know what, guys? I've got a theory about that. Yeah, I gotta pat myself on the back. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. I know bragging is bad. I know bragging is bad. But my theories have been pretty good. But they haven't. Okay, this one hasn't necessarily been confirmed, but I feel pretty strongly about it. So if you go watch my N'Zoth is Alive lore theory from about a year ago, um, I explain how I think that the Black Blade would have ended up in Xal'atath's possession or how it would have left Nyalotha. Like either way, somehow, however it got out of the raid and somewhere else is how I think it happened. Is that you guys remember that in Tazavesh, the Veiled Market, Gallywix is there brokering with cartels, and then the next time we see him, he's like really powerful and undermined, with no explanation exactly with how that happened because he's hated in Kazan, he got banished from his own cartel or exiled, he got exiled from the Horde, he's wanted by the Alliance. There's not really a lot of places that he can go, and he lost a lot of his liquidable wealth when he was exiled from the Horde, assuming that the Horde retained his lands in Ashera. And so he's really down on his luck. So how did he go? He went from there to Tazavesh to now he's like a kingpin and undermine again. That's really strange, isn't it? And so I theorized that he went and made this deal to go have the brokers recover or give him the Black Blade in exchange for power from Xal'atath, or maybe she told him about the Black Blade, or maybe all this other stuff, or maybe she just manipulated him into power or greater wealth or something, so that she would one day call on a favor from him, or maybe just to have the Black Blade again. That's what I think happened. It's to me, it's the best explanation for what Gallywix is doing in Tezvesh. Another, like, there's some pretty decent supporting evidence for this too inside the Tezavesh dungeon, because Solia's like hunting Titan artifacts, and she steals a Black Empire artifact from Captain Hooktail. You remember the time dragon from that dungeon? If you played that dungeon, the what Solia says when she walks up to Time Captain Hooktail is that is an artifact from the Black Empire, and Time Captain Hooktail says you're right. He basically says you're correct. You have an eye for treasure. And then Solia takes it from him and runs off. And we never recover it either. After killing her, we don't see it again. So I think that potentially Time Captain Hooktail as the Infinite Dragon recovered the Black Blade somehow, and then Solia stole it, and then after she died, Cartel Zai funneled the blade to Gallywix, and then Gallywix gave it to Xal'atath. That's kind of like the essence of what I think might have happened. There's other ways it could have happened, like maybe the relic that Solia is taken is not the Black Empire or the Black Blade, but something else entirely, and the Cartel's Eye just sourced the dagger some other way. But yeah, I saw that. But yeah, I saw that whenever Novel was talking about it and stuff. I was like, well, this just to me, it's a really solid explanation of how all these things connect. So what do we got here? Hell of a connection there. How would 11.2 and 11.25 tie together? This is about my Nightmare Flower video where I thought the 11.2 would be Rootlands. Well, 11.2 wasn't Rootlands, but if you consider Midnight to be 11.3, I wasn't entirely wrong. I'm coping. If I was one of the writers and had to answer this hypothetical, though, I would say that Xal'atath goes to Herondar/Rootlands to try and locate Xavius and feed him all the black blood, so he would grow into a massive anti-world tree with her end goal to devour him once he finishes growing. Or maybe set he does the ilgynoth plan to completion, because we stopped ilgynoth when he was like 75% of the way done, or 30%, it's not really clear. I'd have Herenir and Satyr become playable races, with both factions working together with us to stop her or save Xavius. I'd make Satyr the allied race and of the Alliance, and Herenir the allied race of the Horde. Malfurion would get upset about the Satyr, but the Worgen would step up to defend them and harbor them, feeling pity for another people cursed in a similar manner to them. The Satyr would eventually undergo the ritual at Tal'Doran like the Worgen, but it wouldn't transform them into Worgen. Instead, it would allow them to switch between their Satyr and highborn forms, and also be cured of their fell addiction. Then add Lightforged Undead as an allied race, so the Forsaken finally have an allied race. This is something that has confused me why they didn't do this. I even think this is what they were gonna do, but Kalia Menethil was extremely unpopular as a character, and so I think they dropped that entirely. But I think that they originally intended for the Forsaken to get an allied race with the Lightforged Undead. Why they didn't pursue the Lightforged Undead as the Forsaken allied race has always baffled me, especially now, because like we've seen the Arathi at the Priory of the Sacred Flame raising undead with light. I also think not making ethereals playable for Koresh was really strange, but maybe after the final death of Saladar, it could become possible. They have entirely new models and have customizations like races do. This is like a lot of people thought this too. Whenever we saw the all the new models and stuff, it was like, okay, we're getting playable ethereals, and I was so hyped for that. I thought that's gonna be so cool. That's gonna be so fun. And then they didn't do it. And ethereals are one of the most requested races since they were introduced in TBC. Like I'm sure if you're like when I started playing in Cataclysm, the first time I saw an ethereal, I thought that thing looks cool as hell. I want to play as one of those. There's a spider crawling on my wall. I got bit by a brown recluse, so I gotta. I think it's just a house spider. Yeah, it's just a house spider. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think they should make ethereals playable. I think they look really cool. First time I saw one, I wanted to play with one, and I'd still play one today if they added it. I don't know if I'd make it my main, because for me, I rep the Wild Hammer Dwarfs. Actually, while I've got this, I want to talk about the role-playing side of my character. My character, Aben, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but my character, Aben, the monk, the dwarf monk, I role-play her as a Wild Hammer Dwarf from the Hinterlands. Her story is basically her family is a logging company, and one day coming off the Deep Run tram, she found the Tishui Pandaren and went on to learn how to become a monk. I was gonna say she found her life as a lumber as a part of this lumber family business to be quite mundane and boring, and so she went on to become a monk when she found the Tishui inside Stormwind. And I've been thinking too about getting a headband and a Hokage cloak with the Wildhammer clan symbol on them. I think the Wildhammer clan are wildly underrated. They're so big inside Warcraft 2 and I want to say even 3, and then they don't really do a whole lot in WoW, you know? So it'd be cool for them to get more. Now there is more to my character story, but we'd be here that could be an entire video in and of itself. I don't roleplay as much as I used to. I think it's a lot of fun. I've never been too good at it. Like role playing and theory crafting like this, they're all in creative writing exercise, and so it's a lot of fun if you are a creative writer to get into. How did Zaltak get Blackblade? I actually just covered that, so we're good. I personally like to think old god. I like. I personally like to think that all old gods are still alive, even if living isn't the term to describe their situation, including Goon and Yasharaj. The writers know fans love them and can bring them back whenever they want, really. Unlike most things, it's not even a problem to reinvent them or remake them or ass pull them, because the lore originally was that they can't die because they are outside the cycle of life and death. And with that, I've concluded my question and answer. This used to actually be longer, but I decided to make it shorter because there was overlap in questions across the different platforms. But I think I hit everything. So if you want more questions answered, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Future content, what's been on my mind is I've been thinking about making an April Fool's video. I know that I'm spoiling that, but if you made it to the end of this video, then you're a dedicated fan. If not, then maybe you just watched part of it and then you tuned out or chilled out or something. And so it'll be a surprise for you. But I'm thinking about doing an April Fool's video. The topic is going to be like Sylvanas versus Xalatath. Shadowlands Sylvanas. It's like a parody of power scaling. If you've ever seen people argue like Goku versus Superman or something like that. But at the same time, it's hard for me to imagine how to do that because it could be summed up in a paragraph. Yeah, so I don't know. I might have to brainstorm something different. In fact, since I already spoiled it, I think I will go and do something different. So, just kind of thinking about doing that. If you have requests for content, video requests, lore topic, suggest a route in a game, anything like that, just drop down there in the comments. Let me know. All right. Thanks for watching.